I pulled into the driveway on my 30th birthday expecting cake and maybe a card. Instead, I found my entire life packed into trash bags on the front lawn. My mother, father, and older brother stood on the porch with expressions I'd never seen before. Cold. Final. My father cleared his throat and said the words that would change everything. "You need to leave. Tonight. Derek's moving back with his family. They need your room." The locks were already changed. Rain started falling on everything I owned. I stood there in the driveway, rain starting to soak through my work shirt, staring at the three people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. My mother wouldn't even meet my eyes. She just kept her arms crossed, looking past me at something in the distance. "Mom?" My voice cracked. "It's my birthday." "You're 30 years old, Tony," she said, her tone flat and rehearsed. "You should have your own place by now anyway." Derek, my older brother, stood there with this smug expression that made my stomach turn. He was 35, had been married for 6 years, had 2 kids, and apparently that entitled him to steal my childhood bedroom. No discussion, no warning. Just show up on my birthday and erase me from the family home like I never existed. "This is insane," I said, taking a step toward the porch. "You can't just kick me out like this. I live here. I pay rent." "That rent barely covers utilities," my father said. His voice had that edge it always got when he'd made up his mind about something. "Derek needs this space more than you do. He's got a family. And I'm what? Not family?" Nobody answered that. The silence said everything. I tried calling Derek's cell phone 6 times while loading my soaking belongings into my beat-up Honda Civic. Every call went straight to voicemail. He was standing right there on the porch, watching me struggle with boxes, and he wouldn't even pick up. That's when I knew this wasn't a rash decision or a misunderstanding. This was planned, calculated. They'd discussed this, probably for weeks, and decided the best time to destroy my life was on my 30th birthday. The rain got heavier. I threw garbage bags full of clothes into my back seat, trying to keep my laptop and important documents dry. My mother went inside, just turned around and walked through the front door like I was already gone. My father followed her a minute later. Derek stayed on the porch until I finished loading the car, making sure I actually left. "See you around, little brother," he called out as I got into the driver's seat. I didn't respond. Couldn't. If I opened my mouth, I was going to say things that couldn't be taken back. Not that it mattered anymore. I drove to my Aunt Patricia's house across town. She'd always been kind to me growing up, the type who remembered birthdays and asked how work was going. If anyone in this family would help me, it would be her. She opened the door looking surprised but concerned. "Tony, what's wrong? You look terrible. Can I come in? Please?" She stepped aside, and I walked into her warm living room, dripping rainwater onto her carpet. I explained everything, the bags on the lawn, Derek moving back, being thrown out on my birthday without warning. She listened, nodding sympathetically, making appropriate shocked sounds. "That's awful, honey," she said. "They should have given you notice, at least. Can I stay here? Just for a few days while I figure things out?" Her expression changed, subtle but definite. "Let me make some tea." She disappeared into the kitchen, and I heard her phone ring. Low conversation I couldn't quite make out. When she came back 5 minutes later, her whole demeanor had shifted. The warmth was gone, replaced by careful distance. "Tony, I talked to your mother." My heart sank. "What did she say?" She explained the situation. "How you've been difficult lately, not contributing enough. How Derek really needs that space for his children." "That's not what happened. I pay rent. I help around the house. They just decided Derek matters more than I do." Patricia set down her teacup carefully. "I don't want to get involved in family drama. You understand, don't you? Whatever's happening between you and your parents, you all need to work it out yourselves. I'm not asking you to take sides. I just need a place to sleep for a few nights. I think it's best if you handle this on your own, Tony. You're a grown man. You'll figure it out." She walked me to the door. Actually walked me to the door and waited for me to leave. I stood there in her driveway, watching her porch light go off, and realized my mother had already gotten to her. Already spun whatever story made me the problem and them the victims. This was going to be the pattern. Anyone I reached out to in the family would hear their version first. I was completely alone. That night, I slept in my car in a 24-hour grocery store parking lot. I reclined the driver's seat as far as it would go and tried to get comfortable among bags of my possessions. Every hour or so, a security guard would drive past in his cart, shining a flashlight at my windows to make sure I wasn't dead or dealing drugs. I barely slept. The next morning, I went to the gym where I had a membership and showered. Then I drove to work like nothing was wrong. I was a junior analyst at a small accounting firm called Thompson Associates. I'd been there 5 years, worked hard, kept my head down. Nobody there knew my personal life was falling apart. I intended to keep it that way. For 2 weeks, I lived out of my Honda. I'd park in different lots each night, rotating between the grocery store, a park on the edge of town, and sometimes a quiet residential street where nobody seemed to notice. I showered at the gym before work. I ate cheap fast food, saved every dollar. I searched apartment listings during my lunch break, making calls from my car. Everything required first month's rent, last month's rent, and a security deposit. Most places wanted proof of income at 3 times the monthly rent. I made $42,000 a year. Not terrible, but not enough to afford most places I was finding. And I only had $2,000 in savings. On day 15 of sleeping in my car, I found a listing for a studio apartment in a rough part of town. The rent was $700 a month. The photos looked terrible but honest. Small, old, but structurally sound. The landlord was an older man named Mr. Russo who owned the building and lived on the first floor. I called him. "I saw your listing. Is the studio still available?" "Yeah, it's available." "You want to see it? When can I come by?" "Now. If you want." I told my boss, Craig, I had a doctor's appointment and left work early. Mr. Russo met me outside a 3-story brick building that had seen better days. The neighborhood was rough. Chain-link fences, graffiti on some walls, cars with questionable registrations parked on the street. But it was a roof. It was walls. It was not my Honda Civic. The studio was on the 3rd floor. Small didn't begin to describe it. Maybe 300 square feet total. Kitchen area with a hot plate, mini fridge, and sink. Bathroom barely big enough to turn around in. The main space would fit a bed and maybe a chair. The windows were old but intact. The radiator looked ancient but functional. "It's not much," Mr. Russo said. He was maybe 70, spoke with a thick Italian accent, seemed honest. "But heat is included. Water is included. Just electric you pay. How much to move in? First month and security deposit. $1,400 total. I only had $2,000. That would leave me with $600 until my next paycheck. But I'd make it work. I had to. "I can give you $1,200 now, and the rest in 2 weeks when I get paid." Mr. Russo looked at me carefully. Really looked at me. At my wrinkled shirt, the exhaustion in my face, the desperation I was trying to hide. "You in some kind of trouble, kid?" "No, sir. Just had to leave my family's place quickly. I've got a good job. I'll pay you everything on time. I promise." He thought about it for a long moment. "Okay, $1,200 now. 200 in 2 weeks. But you missed that payment. You're out. Capiche?" "Yes, sir. Thank you." I moved in that night with my garbage bags and my car full of belongings. Mr. Russo helped me carry things up the 3 flights of stairs. He didn't ask questions, just helped. When everything was inside, he shook my hand. "You need anything? I'm downstairs in apartment 1A. You seem like a good kid. Don't make me regret this." "You won't. I promise." For the first time since my birthday, I felt something like hope. It was barely furnished. The walls were thin. I could hear every footstep from the apartment above me. But it was mine. My name was on the lease. Nobody could throw me out on a whim. I slept on the floor that first night, using coats as a blanket. It was the best sleep I'd had in weeks. 3 weeks passed. I bought a used mattress from a thrift store for $80. Got some dishes from the dollar store. Picked up a lamp and a folding chair from a yard sale. It wasn't much, but it was becoming home. I paid Mr. Russo the remaining $200 on time. He seemed pleased. Work was going well. Craig, my boss, called me into his office one afternoon. "Tony, you've been doing excellent work lately. The Henderson account. The Morrison portfolio. Really solid stuff. Thank you, sir. I enjoy the work. We're going to have some changes coming up in the next few months. Keep doing what you're doing. I left his office feeling good. Feeling like maybe I was going to be okay. Like maybe getting kicked out was the push I needed to actually build my own life instead of living in my parents' shadow. That feeling lasted until I got home from work the next day. I climbed the 3 flights of stairs, juggling groceries and my work bag. When I reached my floor, I saw light coming from under Mr. Russo's office door at the end of the hall. That was normal. What wasn't normal were the voices I heard. 3 voices that made my blood run cold. I walked slowly toward the office. The door was cracked open. I could see inside. My mother sat in one of Mr. Russo's chairs. My father stood behind her, and Derek leaned against the wall with his arms crossed, that same smug expression on his face. Mr. Russo saw me first. "Tony, come in. Your family is here." I stood in the doorway, groceries still in my arms. "What are you doing here?" My father spoke first. "We need to discuss your financial obligations to this family." "My what?" "We calculated what you owe us," Derek said, pulling out a folder. "All the years we supported you. Room and board from age 18 to 30. It comes to over $100,000. I actually laughed. Couldn't help it. "You're joking." "We're not," my mother said, her voice taking on that martyred tone. "We sacrificed so much for you, Tony. We deserve compensation. You kicked me out. On my birthday. With no warning." "That's separate," my father said. "Derek needed that room. But you still owe us for all those years. We're being reasonable. We're only asking for $1,500 a month going forward." My mind was reeling. $1,500? That's more than double my rent. "That's not our problem," Derek said. "You owe us. We can make this legal if we need to." Mr. Russo looked deeply uncomfortable. I could tell they'd been pressuring him before I arrived. Probably told him some story about me being an ungrateful son, fleeing my obligations. "How did you even find me?" Derek smiled. "I have my ways." "So, what's it going to be? You going to pay what you owe? Or do we need to take this to court?" "Get out," I said quietly. "Excuse me?" "Get out. I don't owe you anything. You don't get to throw me away and then demand money. That's not how this works." My father's face turned red. "You ungrateful little punk. After everything we did for you, you mean after you replaced me with Derek's family? After you threw my belongings on the lawn in the rain? After you turned the whole family against me, those things? You'll regret this," my father said, his voice low and threatening. "We'll take legal action. We'll garnish your wages. We'll make your life hell. Then do it. But get out of my home." They left, but not before Derek stopped in the doorway. "This isn't over, little brother. Not by a long shot." After they were gone, Mr. Russo just looked at me. "Your family? Yeah, they seem like real pieces of work. You have no idea." That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Derek's threat, about how they'd tracked me down, how they'd shown up at my landlord's office trying to intimidate me, about that folder Derek was carrying. They were planning something. This wasn't just a shakedown. This was the beginning of something worse. I had no idea how much worse it would get. 2 months went by without any contact from my family. I started to think maybe they'd given up, realized they had no actual legal claim to my money. I blocked their numbers, set all my social media to private, and focused on rebuilding my life. Work became my sanctuary. Craig Thompson gave me more responsibility. I was leading client meetings, managing accounts, getting recognition for my work. There was talk of a junior partner position opening up. Nothing official yet, but Craig would give me these meaningful looks when he mentioned the firm's future plans. I made friends with my neighbor Dorothy, an elderly woman who lived in the apartment next to mine. She was maybe 75, lived alone since her husband died, and had this way of appearing with homemade soup whenever she sensed I was having a hard day. We'd sit in my tiny studio, and she'd tell me stories about her life, her marriage, her children who lived across the country. She never pried into my situation, but I got the feeling she understood I was recovering from something. "You're a good young man, Tony," she'd say. "Don't let anyone tell you different." I started saving money seriously. Every paycheck, I'd put away whatever I could. Not just for emergencies, but for a goal I was forming in my mind. A house. My own actual house. It seemed impossible on my salary, but I researched down payment assistance programs, first-time buyer grants, anything that might help. I'd never seen anyone in my family own property. My parents had always rented. The idea of owning something, really owning it, where nobody could kick me out, became almost an obsession. At work, things kept getting better. We landed a new client, a mid-sized manufacturing company looking to restructure their financial operations. Craig assigned me as the lead analyst. This was huge. The kind of account that could make my career. I spent 3 weeks preparing for the presentation. Stayed late every night, ran models, created projections, anticipated every question they might ask. The night before the meeting, I rehearsed in my apartment until 2 in the morning. Dorothy knocked on my wall and told me to get some sleep. The presentation day arrived. I wore my best suit, the only suit I owned. The client sent 4 people, including their CFO. Craig sat in with me, but let me run the meeting. I nailed it. Every slide, every answer, every projection. I could see it in their faces. They were impressed. After they left, Craig pulled me aside. "That was outstanding work, Tony. Seriously outstanding. Thank you. I just want to do right by the firm. The junior partner position is opening up next month. I can't make any promises, but you're at the top of the list. That'd be a $40,000 raise. Equity stake in the firm." I tried to play it cool, but inside I was exploding with excitement. 40,000 more a year would change everything. I could buy a house, start building real wealth, prove to myself and anyone watching that I didn't need my family, that I was better off without them. That night I celebrated alone in my studio apartment, eating takeout Chinese food and feeling genuinely happy for the first time in months. Everything was finally coming together. The next morning I woke up early, energized. Got to the office by 7:30, ready to finalize the contract with the manufacturing client. Craig wanted everything ready for their signature by end of day. At 8:45, the receptionist called my extension. "Tony, HR wants to see you." "Now?" she said immediately. That was odd. But I headed to Barbara Walsh's office. Barbara was the HR director, a serious woman in her 50s who ran the department with military precision. I'd only spoken to her a handful of times in 5 years. She wasn't smiling when I walked in. "Close the door and sit down, Tony." I did. There was a manila folder on her desk. Closed. Her expression was carefully neutral, which somehow felt worse than if she'd looked angry. "We received a complaint about you yesterday." My stomach dropped. "A complaint? About what?" "Misappropriation of company funds. Specifically, padding expense reports for personal gain." "What? I've never done anything like that. I barely even file expense reports." She opened the folder. Inside were printouts of expense reports, with my signature on them. Meals, travel, equipment purchases, except the amounts were wrong. Inflated. A $40 lunch showing as $120. A hotel room that cost $90 listed as $250. Page after page of altered reports. "These aren't mine," I said, my voice rising. "I mean, I filed some of these, but not with these amounts. Someone changed them. Your signature is on everyone." "My signature?" "Yes, but look at the numbers. Pull the original submissions from the system. You'll see these have been altered." Barbara's expression suggested she'd already thought of that. We checked. "According to our system, these are the original submissions." "That's impossible. Someone hacked the system or changed the records. I didn't submit these." There was an anonymous tip. Someone claiming to be a concerned family member called yesterday. Said you'd been bragging about defrauding the company. Everything clicked into place. Derek. It had to be Derek. He worked in IT consulting. He'd know how to hack into a company database, alter records, cover his tracks. "It was my brother," I said desperately. "He's trying to sabotage me. He works in IT. He could have done this." Barbara looked skeptical. "Tony, I understand this is serious, but accusing a family member of corporate espionage without evidence sounds crazy. I know, but it's true. My family and I have had a falling out. They've been harassing me, demanding money. This is retaliation. She closed the folder. I'm going to be honest with you. I want to believe you. You've been a model employee, but the evidence is concerning. We need to investigate this thoroughly. Okay, investigate. I'll cooperate completely. Pull security footage, check IP addresses, whatever you need. Until the investigation is complete, you're suspended. With pay, but you need to leave the premises immediately. Suspended? I have the manufacturing client contract to finalize. They're expecting everything today. Jason will handle it. Jason, my coworker who'd wanted the manufacturing account, who'd been visibly annoyed when Craig gave it to me instead. Barbara, please. This is my career. That client meeting was my work. I'm sorry, Tony. This is protocol. Gather your personal items and leave your access card at the front desk. I walked back to my cubicle in a daze. A few coworkers watched me, clearly aware something was wrong. I packed my belongings into a box. My coffee mug, a framed photo of Dorothy and me at a park, some notebooks, 5 years of work fitting into a single cardboard box. On my way out, I saw Jason sitting in the conference room with Craig. He had my presentation materials spread across the table. My work. He looked up and saw me through the glass. The smile on his face was barely concealed. I sat in my car in the parking lot for 30 minutes, trying to process what had happened. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered without thinking. Hey, little brother. Derek. How's work going? His voice was dripping with false concern. You did this. You hacked their system. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just calling to check in on family. Oh wait, that's right. You said we're not family anymore. Why are you doing this? You really don't get it, do you? You don't just cut us off. You don't get to walk away and build a better life while we struggle. Derek has 2 kids to feed. Tony. Mom and Dad are getting older. You think you're better than us? You think you can just escape? I paid my share when I lived there. I don't owe you anything. See, that's where you're wrong. Family takes care of family. And if you won't do it willingly, we'll make you. I'm going to prove you hacked the company system. Good luck with that. You're suspended, right? No access to their network. No way to investigate. And by the time they clear you, if they clear you, you'll be so far behind you'll never catch up. Jason's probably already impressing your client right now. You're insane. No, I'm family. There's a difference. Talk soon, Tony. He hung up. I drove home. Called Barbara from my apartment. I want to know what I need to do to prove my innocence. The investigation will take at least 2 weeks. We've hired an outside firm to examine the records. If they find evidence of tampering, you'll be reinstated. And if they don't, then we'll have to make a decision about your employment. 2 weeks. My paycheck would be cut off. I had about $3,000 saved now, but rent was due in 8 days. I couldn't afford to wait 2 weeks unemployed. Over the next days, I applied everywhere, but the suspension showed up in background checks. Potential employers would call Thompson Associates for references, hear about the investigation, and suddenly the position would be filled. I was toxic, unhireable. Dorothy knocked on my door one evening with a casserole. You've been awfully quiet lately. Just some trouble at work. It'll be fine. She studied my face. You don't believe that? No, I don't. Want to talk about it? So I told her everything. The whole story. From my birthday to right now. She listened without interrupting. And when I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Your family sounds like poison, Tony. Yeah, but poison doesn't win. Not in the end. You're a good person. That matters. I'm not sure good people win anymore, Dorothy. They do. But sometimes they have to fight for it. 2 weeks passed in agonizing slowness. I heard through a friend still at Thompson Associates that Jason had officially landed the manufacturing account. That Craig was talking about him for the junior partner position. That my desk had been cleared out and reassigned. On day 14, Barbara called. Tony, the investigation is complete. And the outside firm found evidence of unauthorized access to our system from an external IP address. Someone did hack in and alter the records. The changes were made to specifically target your submissions. Relief flooded through me. So I'm clear? You're clear of any wrongdoing. However, The firm has decided that due to the disruption this caused, and the fact that your accounts have been reassigned, we won't be able to bring you back at this time. What? You just said I'm innocent. You are, and we'll provide you a positive reference. But the position no longer exists. Jason has taken over your responsibilities. I'm sorry, Tony. This is unbelievable. You'll receive 2 weeks severance pay. I'm truly sorry. For what it's worth, I believe you were set up. I hope you find who did this. I knew who did it, but proving it was another matter entirely. That night, sitting in my apartment with my savings dwindling and no job prospects, I got a text from Derek from a different number I hadn't blocked yet. Heard about Thompson Associates. Tough break. Still don't want to pay us that $1,500 a month? I threw my phone across the room. It hit the wall and cracked. Even broken, I could see the screen light up with another message. We're patient. We can wait. But we won't stop. I spent the next 2 weeks in survival mode. Applied to 50 companies. Got 3 interviews. 2 rejected me outright once they contacted Thompson Associates. The third offered me a position at $30,000 a year, a massive pay cut, in a job I was overqualified for. I almost took it out of desperation. Then I got a call from a firm called Henderson and Associates. They were based in a city 30 miles away, did financial consulting for medium and large businesses. The recruiter had seen my resume on a job board. Your experience is exactly what we're looking for. Can you come in for an interview? Yes, absolutely. The interview was with 3 partners. They asked tough questions. I answered honestly, including about the situation at Thompson Associates. I explained what happened, how I'd been cleared, how my brother had sabotaged me. One of the partners, a woman named Sharon Henderson, studied me carefully. That's quite a story. It's the truth. I can provide documentation from the investigation. We'll want to see that. But I'll be honest, Tony. Your work history is impressive. Your references from clients at Thompson are glowing. Craig Thompson himself wrote you a private recommendation, saying he regrets losing you. He did? He did. Despite what happened, he clearly respects your work. 2 days later, they offered me the position. $55,000 a year. More than I'd been making at Thompson Associates. Different department, different clients. Completely fresh start, where nobody knew about my family or the scandal. I accepted immediately. The job was intense. Henderson and Associates didn't mess around. They expected 60-hour weeks, constant availability, absolute dedication. I gave them all of it, and more. I wanted to prove myself. Needed to prove that what happened at Thompson was a fluke, a sabotage, not my fault. Within 3 months, I was leading projects. Within 6 months, I got my first promotion. The partners noticed when you worked hard. They rewarded it. This was what I'd hoped Thompson Associates would be. My personal life stabilized. I paid my bills on time, rebuilt my savings, started feeling secure again. I avoided social media entirely. Kept my head down. Focused on work. 18 months passed. 18 months of grinding. Of proving myself. Of climbing back from the hole Derek had dug for me. I got promoted twice more. My salary hit $75,000. I was respected at work. Had friends. Felt like I'd finally escaped the nightmare. Dorothy remained my closest friend. We'd have dinner once a week. She'd tell me I worked too hard. I'd tell her she worried too much. She was the grandmother I never really had. The only family that mattered. One evening, she asked me something I'd been avoiding. Have you thought about buying a place? I've thought about it, but it feels permanent. Like I'm saying I'm really going to be okay. And every time I think that, something terrible happens. Tony, you can't live in fear forever. You've worked so hard. You deserve something that's yours. She was right. I'd been saving aggressively for over a year. Had nearly $50,000 in the bank. That was enough for a down payment on a small house. I could get out of the studio apartment, stop throwing money away on rent, build actual equity. I started looking. Found a real estate agent named Linda who specialized in first-time buyers. Explained my budget, my situation, what I was looking for. I've got something that might work, she said. It's a foreclosure. 2 bedrooms, One bathroom, decent neighborhood. Needs work, but it's structurally sound. They're asking $190,000. We went to see it on a Saturday morning. The house was small, maybe 1,200 square feet. White siding that needed painting. A front porch with good bones. A backyard with potential. Inside it was dated but clean. Carpet from the 80s. Kitchen appliances that belonged in a museum. Bathroom fixtures that were original to the house. But it had hardwood floors under the carpet. The bones were solid. The roof was only 5 years old. The mechanicals worked. With time and effort, this could be beautiful. I want to make an offer, I told Linda. It needs a lot of work, Tony. Are you sure? I'm sure. We offered $185,000. They countered at $190,000. We settled at $187,000. I got approved for a mortgage at 4.5% interest. Put down $40,000. Kept $10,000 for renovations and emergencies. The closing day was surreal. Sitting in the title company office, signing paper after paper, feeling like an imposter. Like someone was going to realize I was just the kid who got thrown out on his birthday and tell me this was all a mistake. But then Linda handed me the keys. Congratulations, Tony. You're a homeowner. I sat in my car outside the title company and cried. Just completely broke down. This was mine. Nobody could take it away. Nobody could throw my belongings on the lawn. Nobody could tell me I didn't matter enough to deserve a space. Dorothy came to see it that weekend. Walked through every room, exclaiming over the potential. Oh, Tony, this is going to be beautiful. You're going to make this place shine. And I did. Every weekend, every spare hour, I worked on that house. Ripped up the old carpet to expose the hardwood floors beneath. Sanded them. Refinished them until they gleamed. Painted every wall. Replaced light fixtures. Updated the bathroom vanity. Planted flowers in the front yard. Built a small garden in the back. 6 months after buying it, the house was transformed. Not magazine perfect, but warm and mine. Proof that I could build something. That I'd survived my family and come out better for it. I was sitting on my new front porch one Friday evening in late summer, drinking a beer and admiring the garden I'd planted, when I noticed an envelope taped to my front door. Not in the mailbox. Taped to the actual door where I'd have to see it. I pulled it down. Official looking. Legal letterhead. My hands started shaking before I even opened it. Inside was a document titled Notice of Legal Claim on Property. I read it 3 times, certain I was misunderstanding. But the words didn't change. My family had filed a legal claim against my house. They were arguing that the property was purchased with family funds and should be recognized as a joint family asset. The document listed my mother, father, and Derek as co-claimants. It demanded an immediate mediation hearing. There was a lawyer's name and number at the bottom. I called it, even though it was after business hours. Got a voicemail. My voice was shaking when I left a message. Then I called my mother. First time I'd contacted any of them in over 2 years. She answered on the 3rd ring, her voice sweet and concerned. Tony, honey. I was hoping you'd call. What is this? What have you done? We need to talk about this properly, sweetie. As a family, you can't just cut us out of your life forever. You threw me out on my birthday. We gave you the push you needed to grow up. And look at you now. You have a house. We're so proud. Proud enough to try to steal it from me? Steal? Tony, we're not stealing anything. We just want what's fair. We raised you, we invested in your future. We're entitled to our share. Your share of what? I bought this house with my own money. Money I saved. You had nothing to do with it. Derek's voice came on the line. Speakerphone. That's not entirely accurate, little brother. We have documentation proving we contributed to your down payment. That's a lie. Is it? We'll let the courts decide. Mediation hearing is in 2 weeks. We'll see you there. They hung up. I stood in my living room, the room I'd painted myself, looking at the furniture I'd bought, the home I'd built, and felt everything I'd worked for slipping away. They weren't going to stop. They were never going to stop. Monday morning, I called the lawyer listed on the notice. His name was Russell Hunt, had practiced for 20 years, specialized in property disputes. His consultation fee was $300. I booked an appointment for that afternoon. His office was downtown in an older building, wood paneling and leather chairs. Russell was in his 50s. Gray hair, sharp eyes. He reviewed the documents I'd brought while I sat across from his desk trying not to panic. After 10 minutes of silence, he looked up. "This is sophisticated." "What does that mean?" "It means they've filed a very specific type of legal claim called a constructive trust, essentially arguing there was an implied agreement that you would share ownership of the property with them, even though they're not on the deed. There was no agreement. I bought it myself. They didn't give me a penny. I believe you. But they've produced evidence." He spread papers across his desk. Bank statements with highlighted transactions. Notarized letters. Witness statements. "According to this, they loaned you $20,000 2 years ago for your down payment. I never got a loan from them. I saved that money. Can you prove that?" "I have bank statements showing my savings." "Good. But they have this." He held up a document. "A loan agreement, dated 2 years ago, with your signature on it." I looked at it. The signature looked like mine, but I'd never signed this document. Never even seen it before. "That's forged, probably. But proving forgery requires forensic analysis. That's expensive. And they have witnesses." He gestured to 2 affidavits. "These people claim they were present when the loan was made." I read the names. Didn't recognize either one. I've never met these people. They're willing to testify under oath that they saw your parents give you $20,000 in cash. This is all fabricated. Every piece of it. Russell leaned back in his chair. "I believe you, Tony. But here's what you're facing. Your family has hired a good lawyer. They've created a paper trail. They have witnesses willing to commit perjury. Fighting this is going to be expensive and time-consuming." "How expensive?" $30,000 to $50,000. Maybe more if it goes to trial." I felt sick. I don't have that. Most people don't. That's why these cases usually settle. If I settle, what happens? They'd get a percentage of ownership in your house. Or you'd be forced to sell and split the proceeds with them. Neither of those things is acceptable. This is my house. Then we fight. But Tony, you need to understand what you're up against. Even if you win, the legal fees could bankrupt you. You might lose the house just trying to defend it. I left his office feeling worse than when I'd arrived. That evening I calculated my finances. I had $10,000 in savings. My house was worth maybe $220,000 now, with all the improvements. My mortgage balance was $147,000. If they forced a sale, even if I won the case, the legal fees would eat up most of my equity. Russell filed a response to their claim, denying everything, demanding they prove their case. The court set a hearing date 3 months out. Discovery process began. That meant both sides could demand documents, take depositions, build their cases. My family produced more evidence. Another loan document, this time for $15,000, dated 3 years ago. More witness statements. Bank records showing withdrawals that supposedly matched the loan amounts. All fake, but convincing fake. Russell hired a forensic document examiner. Cost me $8,000. The expert examined the signatures, the paper, the ink. Found some anomalies but couldn't definitively prove forgery. The documents were sophisticated enough that he could only say the signatures were possibly forged, not definitely. "It's not enough," Russell told me. "We need more." They filed another motion. Claimed they'd found additional evidence. Emails supposedly from me acknowledging the loans. Text message screenshots showing me agreeing to share the property. I'd never sent any of these. But the timestamps matched periods when I had no way to prove where I was or what I was doing. They'd been careful. 2 weeks before the scheduled hearing, they escalated. Filed amended documents, increasing their claim from 30% ownership to 51%. Controlling interest. If the judge ruled in their favor, they could force me to sell the house. I'd get 49% of the proceeds after paying the mortgage and legal fees. I'd end up with almost nothing. Russell's expression was grim when we met. They're playing hardball. They know this amended claim might make you want to settle just to make it stop. What are our chances if we go to court? He was quiet for a long moment. Honestly, maybe 50-50. They have a lot of fabricated evidence. Without definitive proof of forgery, it comes down to credibility. Who the judge believes. And if I lose, you lose the house. Plus, you'll owe me $30,000 in legal fees at this point. Plus their legal fees if the judge orders you to pay them. I could barely breathe. This can't be happening. There's something else you should know. I did some research on their witnesses. Both of them have connections to your brother. One worked at his company 3 years ago. The other owes him money. They're lying, but proving that is difficult. That night, Derek called from yet another number I hadn't blocked. You're looking stressed, little brother. This doesn't have to be so hard. How did you do it? The documents, the signatures, all of it. I don't know what you're talking about. We simply documented loans we made to you that you conveniently forgot about. Everything you've submitted is fake and you know it. Can you prove that? Because from where I'm sitting, we have a pretty solid case. But I'm feeling generous. Let's make a deal. Settle for 40%. We'll drop the suit. You keep the majority of your house. Everyone moves on. I'm not settling. Then you'll lose everything. We planned this carefully, Tony. Every document, every witness, every timeline. You think you can outsmart us? You're nothing. You've always been nothing. The baby brother who couldn't cut it with the family. Why are you doing this? You have a wife, kids, a job. Why do you need to destroy me? Because you thought you were better than us. You cut us off. You built this nice life while we struggled. That's not how family works. Family shares everything. And if you won't share willingly, we'll take it. You're insane. No, I'm persistent. See you in court. He hung up. I sat in the house I'd poured my heart into and realized I was probably going to lose it. Not because I'd done anything wrong, but because my family was better at lying than I was at proving the truth. Dorothy came over the next morning, saw my face. What happened? I told her everything. She listened, getting angrier with every word. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. Those evil people. After everything they've done to you, I don't know what to do, Dorothy. I can't afford to keep fighting, but I can't just give them my house. You fight. That's what you do. You fight until there's nothing left to fight with. What if I lose? Then at least you'll know you didn't let them win without a fight. But Tony, you're smarter than them. And the truth matters. It has to matter. I wished I had her faith. The preliminary hearing arrived on a cold morning in November. I wore my only suit, sat next to Russell at a long table facing the judge. My family sat across the aisle with their lawyer, a polished man in an expensive suit named Richard Grayson. Judge Patricia Morrison reviewed the initial filings. She was maybe 60, stern face, reputation for no-nonsense rulings. After 20 minutes of reading in silence, she looked up. This is a complex case. I'm ordering a full trial. 6 weeks from today. Both parties will present all evidence and witnesses. This court is not taking this matter lightly. My family's lawyer stood. Your Honor, we believe the evidence clearly shows my clients have a legitimate ownership claim. Russell stood. Your Honor, we believe the evidence is fabricated and will prove that at trial. Judge Morrison's expression didn't change. You'll have your chance. Trial is set for January 8th. Both parties are ordered to make all evidence available during discovery. This hearing is adjourned. Outside the courthouse, Derek approached me. His wife Amanda was with him, smiling like this was a social occasion. Nice to see you, Tony. You're looking thin. Stress will do that. Stay away from me. Relax. We're just talking. Amanda wanted to see you. She's never actually met you. Can you believe that? I've told her so much about my little brother. Amanda extended her hand. I didn't take it. She laughed. Derek said you were stubborn. Well, we'll be seeing a lot more of each other soon. Once we're co-owners of your house. They walked away. I stood there shaking, wanting to chase after them, wanting to scream. Russell put a hand on my shoulder. Don't engage. It's what they want. Stay focused. Over the next weeks, my life became consumed by the case. Russell and I met constantly, reviewed bank statements, built timelines, prepared my testimony. The forensic expert couldn't give us anything definitive. The document examiner found anomalies, but nothing conclusive enough to prove forgery in court. My work performance suffered. I was distracted, exhausted, Couldn't focus. My boss at Henderson and Associates called me in. "Tony, I need to talk to you about your performance. You've missed deadlines. Client complaints. This isn't like you." "I'm sorry. I'm dealing with some personal legal issues." "Is it something that's going to resolve soon?" "I hope so. I'm putting you on a performance improvement plan. 30 days to get back to your usual standard. I don't want to lose you, but I can't have this continue." Just when I needed my job most, I was on the verge of losing it. Dorothy's health declined. She ended up in the hospital with pneumonia. I visited every day after work, sitting by her bed, feeling like I was losing the one person who'd been there for me through everything. "You're going to be okay," I told her. "I know I am. I'm tough. But are you?" "I don't know anymore." "You're tougher than you think, Tony. You've survived everything they've thrown at you. You'll survive this too." She recovered, came home after a week. But she looked frailer. I brought her groceries, checked on her daily, tried to help however I could. 3 days before the trial, Derek showed up at my house. Brought Amanda and their 2 kids. Just walked up to my front door and rang the bell. I opened it. "What do you want?" "Can we come in? Kids want to see their future playroom." "You're not coming in. Get off my property." "Technically, it might be our property too in a few days." Amanda was already taking photos with her phone, walking around my porch, photographing the house from different angles. The kids ran around the front yard like they owned the place. "This is a nice neighborhood," Amanda said. "Good schools nearby. We've been thinking about moving somewhere better for the kids." Derek leaned against my porch railing. "You know, I'm feeling generous. One last offer. Give us 40%, sign over partial ownership, and we drop the suit tomorrow. Otherwise, we go to trial and you risk losing everything." "What's it going to be?" Every instinct I had wanted to punch him, wanted to drag him off my property. But I knew that's what he wanted. Wanted me to lose control, get arrested, give them more ammunition, get off my property. "Suit yourself. See you in court, little brother." They left, but not before Amanda took a few more photos. Derek called back from the sidewalk. "We'll take good care of this place after you're gone. Don't worry." That night, I couldn't sleep. Lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about losing everything. The house I'd fixed up, the life I'd built, all of it taken by people who'd already taken so much from me. Around midnight, my phone rang. Derek again. "Last chance, Tony. Settle tonight. 40%. We'll even let you stay in the house as a tenant. Go to hell. You're going to lose everything. The house, your legal fees, probably your job since I hear you're on some kind of warning. Is your pride really worth all that?" "It's not about pride. It's about right and wrong." "Right and wrong." "Tony, you still don't get it. There's no such thing. There's only what you can prove and what you can't. We've built an airtight case. Judge is going to rule in our favor, and you'll lose everything you've worked for. Last chance." "No." "Okay then. Sleep well." I didn't. Barely slept at all the next 3 nights. When the trial date arrived, I was exhausted, stressed, and terrified. This was it. Everything came down to the next few days. The trial began on a Monday morning. The courtroom was small, wood-paneled, official. Judge Morrison sat behind the bench looking stern. My family filled the plaintiff's table with their lawyer. Russell and I sat at the defense table. Their lawyer, Grayson, opened strong, presented the loan documents, the bank statements, the witness affidavits, walked the judge through what they claimed was a clear pattern. Tony borrows money from family. Tony uses money to buy house. Tony refuses to acknowledge family's contribution. Family has right to ownership stake. It was convincing, too convincing. I watched Judge Morrison taking notes, her expression neutral, and felt my stomach sink. Then Grayson played the security camera footage. "Your Honor, this video is from First National Bank, dated 2 years ago. As you can see, the defendant meets with his father, receives an envelope, which our evidence shows contained $20,000 in cash for his down payment." The video played on a screen. There I was, or someone who looked like me, meeting my father at a bank, accepting an envelope. The timestamp matched their timeline perfectly. Russell cross-examined. Can you prove what was in that envelope? The context makes it clear, Grayson replied smoothly. Combined with the loan documents, the witness statements, the pattern of behavior, it's obvious. Russell tried to poke holes, questioned the authenticity of the documents. But without definitive proof of forgery, he was just raising doubts, not disproving anything. They called their witnesses. Two men I'd never seen before. Both swore under oath they'd witnessed my father giving me money for the house. Both described details of conversations they couldn't possibly know because they never happened. Russell cross-examined aggressively. Got one witness to admit he'd worked for Derek years ago. Got the other to admit Derek had helped him out financially. But neither cracked. They stuck to their stories. Judge Morrison called for lunch recess. I sat on the courthouse steps feeling defeated. Russell tried to be encouraging. We present our case this afternoon. Your testimony, your bank records, Dorothy's testimony about the timeline. It's not over, but it felt over. They'd built something too sophisticated to tear down with the truth. Dorothy found me on the steps. She looked frail but determined. Tony, I need to show you something. She pulled a folder from her purse. I've been doing research. Old lady with too much time on her hands. Look at this. Inside were printouts from social media. Amanda's Facebook account. Posts from 2 years ago that she'd since deleted but that Dorothy had somehow retrieved from cached pages. One post showed a photo of Derek at a bank. The caption read, "Derek handling family business today." The timestamp matched the date of the security camera footage. The location tag showed First National Bank. That's the same day as the video, I said. My heart starting to race. Keep looking. More photos. Derek wearing a jacket that looked exactly like one I owned. Derek with his hair styled similar to mine. Posts about Derek taking care of things and setting things right. Dorothy, how did you find this? I'm old, not stupid. I know how to use the internet. I also found this. She showed me another printout. A receipt for a jacket purchase. Posted by Amanda. Same jacket from the video. Derek bought it 3 weeks before the bank visit. I grabbed my phone, called Russell. Get back to the courthouse. Now, we have new evidence. Russell arrived 15 minutes later, reviewed Dorothy's findings. His eyes widened. This shows Derek impersonated you in the video. Tony, this could change everything. Can we present it now? We need to authenticate it. Get an expert to verify. These social media posts are real, not fabricated. And we need time to investigate further. He approached Judge Morrison before the afternoon session. Your Honor, new evidence has emerged that requires expert analysis. I'm requesting a continuance to allow proper investigation. Grayson objected. The defense has had months to prepare. This is a delay tactic. Judge Morrison considered. What type of evidence? Russell explained. Showed the social media posts. The judge studied them carefully. This is potentially significant. I'm granting a 2-day continuance. Mr. Hunt, you'll have until Wednesday morning to have this evidence properly authenticated. This trial resumes at 9 a.m. Wednesday. That night, Russell called in every favor he had. Got a digital forensics expert to work overnight, analyzing Amanda's social media history. Found more deleted posts. Found metadata showing the photos were genuine. Built a timeline showing Derek deliberately styling himself to look like me around the time of the bank video. Tuesday morning, the forensic expert examined the bank security footage itself. Ran it through analysis software. Found something Russell and I had missed. The timestamp had been altered. The video was from a different day entirely, digitally edited to match the family's timeline. The expert could prove it with metadata embedded in the file. Russell also hired a private investigator to dig into the two witnesses. By Tuesday afternoon, the investigator had found bank records showing Derek had paid both men $5,000 each, 2 weeks before they signed their affidavits. When Wednesday morning arrived, we were ready. Russell presented the new evidence methodically. Started with Amanda's social media timeline. Showed the judge photos of Derek at the bank on the exact date of the security footage. Showed photos of Derek wearing clothes identical to mine. Showed deleted posts about Derek taking care of family business. Then he called the digital forensics expert. The expert testified about the altered timestamp on the security footage. showed technical analysis proving the video had been edited, explained how sophisticated the forgery was, but how digital metadata never lies. The video shown by the plaintiff purports to show the defendant at First National Bank on March 15th, 2 years ago. However, the metadata shows this footage was actually from April 3rd, and the timestamp was digitally altered. Judge Morrison leaned forward. "You're certain of this?" "Absolutely certain, Your Honor. I can show you the technical details." Grayson tried to object, tried to discredit the expert, but the evidence was too solid. Russell then called one of their witnesses back to the stand, the man who'd sworn he witnessed the loan transaction. Russell presented bank records showing a $5,000 payment from Derek to this witness. "You testified you witnessed Mr. Thompson's father giving him money, but you were paid $5,000 by the plaintiff's son to make that testimony. Isn't that true?" The witness went pale. "Aye. That was for something else." "What was it for?" Silence. "You committed perjury for money, didn't you?" The witness broke, started crying, admitted Derek had paid him to lie, admitted he'd never met me before the trial, admitted the whole thing was fabricated. The courtroom erupted. Judge Morrison's face turned thunderous. She called both legal teams to the bench. I couldn't hear what was said, but Grayson looked panicked. Judge Morrison returned to the bench. "This court takes perjury extremely seriously. I'm dismissing the plaintiff's claim in its entirety, with prejudice. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for criminal investigation of fraud, perjury, and forgery." She looked directly at my family. "You have committed serious crimes in my courtroom. You fabricated evidence, suborned perjury, and attempted to defraud Mr. Thompson of his property. Bailiff, detain these individuals while I contact the DA's office." Derek stood up, face red. "This is ridiculous. He's our brother. He owes us. Sit down, Mr. Thompson, or I'll hold you in contempt as well." Derek kept yelling. "This isn't over. You can't do this to family." Security escorted them out. Derek was still shouting as they led him away. My mother was crying. My father looked destroyed. Judge Morrison turned to me. "Mr. Thompson, I apologize that you had to endure this fraudulent case. Your property is yours alone. I'm also ordering the plaintiffs to pay all of your legal costs. Furthermore, I'm issuing a restraining order prohibiting them from contacting you or coming within 500 feet of your property." I couldn't speak, could barely process what had just happened. Russell shook my hand. "We did it. You never gave up. That's what saved you." Dorothy was crying happy tears. I told you the truth matters." Later that day, Russell explained what would happen next. "The DA will file criminal charges: fraud, forgery, identity theft, perjury. Your brother is looking at serious prison time. Your parents will likely face probation and fines. I don't want revenge. I just want them to leave me alone. They will. Between the criminal charges and the restraining order, they won't risk contacting you." The local news picked up the story. Small headline: "Family fraud case unravels in court." My name wasn't mentioned, but enough details were there that anyone who knew us would recognize the story. 2 weeks later, Derek took a plea deal. 2 years probation, $10,000 in fines, restitution to me for legal fees, and a permanent criminal record. My parents got community service, fines, and probation. Their lawyer Grayson faced an ethics investigation and was later suspended from practice. But the best part? I got a check from the court for $63,000. My legal costs, paid by my family as ordered by Judge Morrison. I stood in my house, the house I'd nearly lost, and felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. 6 months after the trial, my life looked completely different. Henderson and Associates had removed me from the performance improvement plan once they learned about the court case. My boss actually apologized for doubting me, offered me a promotion with a $15,000 raise. I accepted. The house continued to be my sanctuary. I finished the renovations I'd started, added new projects, built a deck in the backyard, renovated the kitchen with new cabinets and appliances. Every improvement felt like proof I'd survived, like proof they couldn't break me. Dorothy recovered fully from her pneumonia. She came over every Sunday for dinner, and we'd sit on my new deck talking about life. She became the family I'd chosen, the grandmother I'd needed. "I'm proud of you," she told me one evening. "You could have given up so many times, but you fought. I had help. If you hadn't found those social media posts, you would have found something else. Good people find a way, that's just how it works." I started therapy to process everything. The betrayal, the years of manipulation, the trauma of nearly losing everything. My therapist helped me understand that my family's behavior was never about me. It was about their own dysfunction, their jealousy, their inability to let me succeed independently. "They couldn't stand seeing you build something they hadn't built," she explained. "Your success highlighted their failures. So they tried to tear you down. Work became fulfilling again. I took on bigger accounts, mentored junior analysts, found joy in solving complex problems, made friends with colleagues, started dating someone from the office, a woman named Sarah who worked in marketing. She knew my whole story and didn't run away. That felt like its own kind of victory. I never heard from Derek, my mother, or my father again. The restraining order and criminal convictions ensured that. Sometimes I wondered if they'd learned anything, if they'd changed. Mostly I didn't think about them at all. One Saturday afternoon in late summer, I hosted a small dinner party. Dorothy, Russell, Sarah, some friends from work. We sat on my deck, ate food I'd grilled, talked and laughed as the sun set. I looked around at these people, my chosen family, and felt overwhelming gratitude. Russell raised his glass. To Tony, who proved that integrity wins. We all toasted. Dorothy leaned over and whispered, "This is what winning looks like. Not the house. This. People who love you." She was right. The house was important, but only as proof of something bigger. Proof that I'd survived. Proof that I'd built a life worth living despite everything they'd done to stop me. A few weeks later, I received a letter in the mail. My mother's handwriting on the envelope. I almost threw it away without opening it, but curiosity won. Inside was a 2-page letter. Apology, sort of. Blaming Derek for leading them astray. Claiming they'd just wanted to reconnect as a family. Asking if I might help with their legal fees since they were struggling financially. I read it once, then threw it away. Felt nothing but relief that they were still exactly who they'd always been. Manipulative. Self-centered. Incapable of genuine accountability. I didn't respond. Didn't need to. My silence was the only answer they deserved. That evening I sat in my living room, looking at everything I'd built. The life I'd created from nothing after they'd thrown me out. The career I'd rebuilt after they'd sabotaged me. The home I'd defended when they'd tried to steal it. My phone rang. Sarah calling to say goodnight. We talked for an hour about nothing important. About her day, my day, plans for the weekend. Normal, healthy, simple. When we hung up, I walked through my house one more time. Every room represented something I'd fought for. Every piece of furniture was something I'd chosen. Every photo on the walls showed people who actually cared about me. I thought about that birthday 3 years ago. Standing in the rain, my life in garbage bags, feeling like the world had ended. If someone had told me then where I'd be now, I wouldn't have believed them. But I'd survived. More than survived. I'd built something real. Something nobody could take from me, because it wasn't just the house. It was the strength I'd found. The boundaries I'd learned to set. The understanding that blood doesn't make family. Love does. Sometimes the family that hurts you most is the one you were born into. But you're not stuck with them. You can build your own family, your own life, your own definition of success. And when people try to steal what you've earned, you stand your ground. You fight. You don't give up, even when it feels hopeless. The truth has a way of coming out, as long as you never stop fighting for it. My house isn't just where I live. It's proof that I survived them. And that's something no one can ever take away. 3 years ago, they threw me out on my birthday, thinking they'd broken me. Thinking I'd come crawling back, desperate and defeated. Instead, I built a life they couldn't touch. Found people who actually cared. Proved that you don't need the family you were born with if they refuse to act like family. I stood on my front porch one last time that night, looking at the street, the neighborhood, the life I'd created. A car drove past. Somewhere, a dog barked. Normal sounds. Safe sounds. This was home. Not because of the address or the deed in my name, but because I'd fought for it. Because every nail I'd hammered, every wall I'd painted, every battle I'd won to keep it, they all added up to something bigger than property. They added up to proof that I mattered, that I was worth fighting for, even if I had to do the fighting myself. And that made all the difference. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to cut ties with toxic family members to protect your own well-being? What did you do when the people who were supposed to support you became the ones tearing you down? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else who's going through something similar. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about overcoming adversity and finding strength in impossible situations. And share this with someone who might need to hear that they're not alone, that survival is possible, that sometimes the best family is the one you choose for yourself. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminded you that you're stronger than you think, that the truth does matter, and that sometimes the best revenge is simply living well. Take care of yourselves. Protect your peace. And remember that anyone who tries to steal what you've built through your own hard work doesn't deserve a place in your life. Until next time,